What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today I'm going to show you 2 ways to add power to your Altissimo notes. This is not a video on how to get your first Altissimo notes. This is a video on how to add power to your Altissimo notes. So in order to be successful with this video, you're going to need to know how to already play your Altissimo notes. If you don't, you can still watch the video, and it's going to be very helpful because it's going to let you know what some of your favorite saxophone players are doing to create these Altissimo sounds. But this video is not about how to play Altissimo. It's about how to make it sound cooler. If you're looking for a tutorial on how to get your first Altissimo note or how to make them sound better, I've done a couple of those on YouTube, and in my sax school, the Scott Paddock Sax School, I have an entire course dedicated to Altissimo notes. In that course, I teach you step by step how to get the first note and show you all the fingerings that you're going to want to know and show you how to learn the notes in a way that makes sense and makes them way easier to figure out. I do that on both alto and tenor. But again, this video is going to be about 2 techniques that are going to make your Altissimo sound a whole lot more powerful. I was recently in Mexico and I played a show at the Teatro de la Ciudad in Playa del Carmen. I posted a video of one of my solos from that show. In that video, I did both of the techniques that I'm going to talk about today, and I got a lot of questions about how my Altissimo sounded so powerful, what was I doing, and also why was I moving my fingers around a little bit. I'm going to answer both of those questions today when I show you how to add some power to your Altissimo notes. For all of the examples today, I'm going to use an Altissimo A. I'm going to use that fingering because it's pretty universal on all saxophones, alto and tenor, as well as from brand to brand. So the fingering I'm going to be using is 2-3, 1-2-3. So it's pretty important that you're going to use this fingering because we're going to be doing some stuff with our fingers. What saxophone player do you think has the best or most powerful Altissimo? For me, it's definitely Lenny Pickett. I was fortunate enough to do a gig with Lenny Pickett in my mid-20s, and the show was awesome. We were playing with little feet, but I was in the dressing room next door to Lenny Pickett, and I heard him warming up his Altissimo for about an hour, and it was completely insane. His Altissimo is just at an entirely different level. So he's definitely my favorite. Let me know in a comment below who your favorite Altissimo saxophone player is. So let's add some power to these Altissimo notes. The first technique I'm going to show you sounds like this. As you can hear, I'm just repeating that Altissimo A, but I am putting something on the front of each one of those notes. So it's actually pretty easy to do, and it's going to make your notes sound a whole lot more powerful and way cooler. So I'm going to start off by just playing an Altissimo A and repeat it a couple times. Now, if I want that note to sound a lot more powerful, first I'm going to have to make sure that I'm playing the note pretty short. So you can hear there is space in between the notes. And when I cut that note off, what I'm going to do is lift these 2 fingers. I'm going to lift these 2 fingers and put them down right as I play the note. So what that's going to do is give me a little bit of the edge of a false fingering. In other words, a fingering that's not quite correct. And then I go to the regular fingering, and it's going to give me kind of a scoopy, powerful sound. So take a listen to it. When I do that, the note sounds a whole lot more powerful. Listen to it without the false fingering in the front, and then with the false fingering. Adding that little false fingering in front of the note gives me that thwap articulation, or that little scoop into the note, which makes it sound really cool. I'm going to stand up so that you can see my fingers a little bit more clear. Now the trick is getting your fingers back down just after you start the note. If you're too late, it's going to sound really weird. You're going to get the false fingering sound instead of the Altissimo sound. If you're too early, you won't get the sound at all. So you have to catch just the very edge of the false fingering getting into the Altissimo note. Now you can also create this same sound by scooping with your tongue. But as you can hear, it's not nearly as consistent because when you're playing an Altissimo note, your tongue is up really high, and when you lower it, that's going to give you a really good chance of getting a furp. So instead of using your tongue to scoop into that note or give it that thwap sound, you can use the false fingerings and it's going to be a whole lot more reliable and it's going to be bigger and sound cooler. If you're watching this video, then you most likely want to get a lot better at playing altissimo on the saxophone. If that is the case, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School. In my sax school, I do an entire course dedicated to altissimo notes. So I start off showing you your embouchure, your tongue position, all the stuff you need to know to get that first note out, including a couple cheats that might make it a little bit easier. Then I show you note by note how to learn your altissimo. We learn one note at a time, and I show you multiple fingerings for both alto and tenor sax. So if you're looking to improve your altissimo or just get your very first altissimo note, then you are definitely going to want to check out that course. In addition to the Altissimo course, I also have an entire set of pathway courses that takes you from beginner all the way up into early advanced. So no matter what your playing level is on the saxophone, if you're looking to improve and make it to the next level, stop by the Scott Paddock Sax School. I'll leave a link in the video description below. Here is an example of another way to add power to your altissimo notes. As you can hear in this example, I'm holding a long note. I'm holding this altissimo A, but I put a little disturbance in it just to give it a little bit of flavor. If I just hold an altissimo note, it can sound really good, but it can also be pretty boring. So this is me holding an altissimo A. Sounds fine, right? Especially if I was in the climax of a solo, that could sound really cool, but it can also get a little bit boring. So what I like to do is very similar to what I just did, but just not quite as extreme. So when I'm holding that altissimo A, I lift one or both of my fingers just slightly to get a little disturbance or a little disruption in my airstream so that I just get like a little wah in my altissimo note. Take a listen to what I'm talking about. That is a really great way to add intensity and power to a held altissimo note when you're playing with a band, especially when the band is building. So if they're grooving out and hitting harder and bringing the groove up even stronger, instead of re-articulating the note, you can add a little bit of disruption on that note or a little bit of rhythm on the note without actually playing a separate note, just by lifting one of these fingers just a little bit. I usually lift this one, but you can lift either one of them. I'm going to stand up so you can get a little bit better view of what I'm doing with my fingers. As you can see, I'm not lifting my fingers all the way up. I'm just lifting them just enough so they get a little disruption in my sound. So if you do that and you can do it with a hit that the band is doing or with what how the drums are building up what's going on in the groove, it's going to sound really, really cool. So it's just another easy way to add some intensity and some power into your altissimo notes. Altissimo notes on their own are already very powerful, so if you want to take them to the next level, you have to figure out some kind of thing to put on or do to the note. And these are two really good steps in the right direction. Now, I showed all of these examples on an altissimo A just because that's going to work on any saxophone, no matter what type it is, but you can also do it on different notes. But you're going to have to figure out which finger you're going to move or what you're going to do to make that sound happen. And that will all depend on your fingerings for each of those notes. For example, there are about 7 different ways to finger an altissimo G on the tenor sax. So you just have to figure out what fingers you're going to move around to make that altissimo G sound more powerful using both of these techniques. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. If you'd like to dive deeper into my saxophone world, I'd like to invite you to check out the Scott Paddock Sax School.